It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody, welcome in. My name is Chris, and this is a show that will make you taller. Hello there, you possums of the yacht variety. How are you today? It's wonderful to have you here. I love you. I appreciate your loyalty. The world is in some ways a mess, but I don't know. Our salvation is always in groups, and the bigger the groups, the better. Just let everyone on in. We have a big tent around here aboard the yacht. Every possum welcome. I hope we can make this Monday a little happier than it might otherwise have been by simply observing some football. We have 8 football games that I have watched all the way through from Sunday. Maybe you were able to watch some of them too, so maybe you have your own observations, which is awesome. I'll talk about what I think I saw. You can see if you agree. I'm gonna get us started on a weekend with some terrific games. With a terrific game, the Broncos beat the Chiefs on a last-second field goal. Not the biggest offensive explosion, but I think we might have imagined that would have been the case given the quality of these two defenses. We found out heading into the weekend that indeed, as we feared, J.K. Dobbins is out for at least the regular season with a foot injury. So the primary thing I wanted to observe in this game, first of all, was R.J. Harvey, and it wasn't great, but it was a tough spot. Harvey does 15 touches for 50 scrimmage yards. He also threw a pass in the red zone on a Philly special that was very bad and easily could have been intercepted had Bo Nix not knocked it away. You got Jaleel McLaughlin playing on the first series and getting 2 carries. It also felt like a point in the second half where the Broncos got a little tired of having Harvey be maybe less than decisive and started using McLaughlin more in the red zone. After notching only 5 first downs in the first half, Denver got it going a little bit in the second. Evil movie dojo owner Bo Nix flipped the field with a good pass to a tightly covered Troy Franklin. Harvey caught a couple of screens, but then McLaughlin got back-to-back carries inside the 10. On the second one, he was pushed in by his lineman. You know how I feel about that. Ban it. But that made it 13-6 Broncos, and it was Denver's only touchdown of the day. Later, on a 3rd and 1, down in the Chiefs' red zone, Broncos really needed it out of Harvey, and he slithered through an opening. That was a good run on a tough day. The snap count is no problem. It winds up being 37 Harvey, 8 McLaughlin, and then 8 also for Tyler Bidet. So that's not the problem. Hilariously, the only other running back in the entire Denver organization that I'm aware of is Deuce Vaughn, who is somehow smaller than all 3 of those tiny-boned Denver running backs I just mentioned. Monty Ball not coming through that door. You could see that the Chiefs had been schooled on that misdirection screen to Harvey, the 6-foot invisible rabbit, on which he'd scored multiple times this year. On a 3rd and 3 close in, they tried for the Harvey screen on which he, has had some success, but he was just covered. It was a tough matchup. I don't think you want to declare Harvey's useless or bad or so much worse than J.K. Dobbins. There'll be times when the opposing defense isn't quite as on it, but we have to be honest about what Harvey looked like in this one game as a starter. Not a great day for him. This was definitely not the Blake Bortles experience out of Bo Nix. And yet he still led another comeback win. In fact, the other quarterback was the one who blinked. Nix wasn't treated great by his receiving core in the first half. Franklin had a horrendous drop on a 3rd and long late second quarter. Cortland Sutton was on a milk carton for a good long while. But after the Broncos blocked an extra point, Denver also had to punt, but then they got a stop. They got good field position, kicked the tying field goal. On the last drive, there was Sutton, finally. A 3rd and 15 at the 2-minute warning, a 3rd and 6 right after that as well. Both really good plays by Nix and really good plays by Cortland Sutton. And then the decisive play that got the Broncos into chip shot territory for the win. Kind of a push-off by Troy Franklin. I'm going to say in the Eagle game they would have called it, but I thought Denver had gotten some kind of shaky calls throughout the game, so they're probably not weeping for Kansas City. They make the kick, and the Broncos are 9-2 with a defense that just stood up to one of the biggest tests you can possibly get. I have to say, The only other thing coming out of this game for Denver for me is I think I'm basically there treating Franklin as the number one receiver. 2 wonderful plays I mentioned by Sutton. He also got robbed of a tightrope act on the sideline where it sure looked like he was in. But Sutton just didn't feel that involved for much of this game. He showed up when it mattered, but Franklin feels like the first read a lot. Pat Bryant had a long one too. I'm not sure about it, and maybe it doesn't last more than 1 week, but for the moment, I think I flip-flop these Denver receivers. As for the Chiefs, they came out winging it in this game. Second play, a bomb shot to Xavier Worthy. He's open, and he wasn't touched, he wasn't bumped or anything, but was thrown a little too far by Patrick Mahomes. The fourth play is another bomb to Tyquan Thornton, and also too deep, and they punt on that first drive. The second drive, 3rd and 16, another deep shot to Worthy. You'll never guess who gets called for interference. That's right, it's the human penalty flag, Riley Moss. On that drive in the red zone, brutal drop by Rashee Rice. They kick a field goal. Early in that game, Rice was 5 catches, 34 yards, all on short stuff. He would only wind up catching 1 more pass for 4 more yards the entire rest of the day. But at the end of the first half, Mahomes scrambled and threw another deep ball for Rice, and Rice dropped that one. And it was not good and did not help you very much for fantasy. In the third quarter, a bomb shot to Thornton, again on a 3rd and long. It's pretty good coverage by the free safety, but the dude throwing it kind of good too. It was just a better throw than he could cover. Thornton catches it inside the 10. That leads to the Kareem Hunt touchdown. Fourth quarter, 3rd and forever. Just throw it up to whoever the human penalty flag is covering. It's another interference on Riley Moss, his 7th of the season, most in the NFL. That led to the Travis Kelce touchdown that allowed the Chiefs to take a fourth quarter lead. But there's a limit even to the best quarterbacks on the planet, and Denver's defense was hard on Mahomes. He should have thrown a pick 6 to start the third quarter. It was a very, very bad throw. And away from the play on the other side of the field, they call illegal contact. It's a very bad call. Even Tony Romo, who does not like to disagree with Gene Steratore, was like, okay, man, watch this very next play. You could call that exact call on every single defender covering every single receiver. Anyway, it didn't count as a pick 6. Then Travis Kelce got 4 straight catches. The Chiefs were getting close, and Mahomes threw another stinker. Intercepted, not returned for a touchdown, but picked off. I don't think we learned too terribly much for this Chiefs game that's going to wind up changing our fantasy minds. Like, the play calling was 45 pass attempts, 13 called running back runs, and for sure Rice didn't catch his red zone look. And otherwise, it's all itty-bitty stuff to him, but usually that stuff works to him, so you're still using him. And then everyone else is out there getting bombs. You'd love the one that got completed not to be Tyquan Thornton. You'd love Hollywood Brown to catch the ball the first time and not bat it up in the air and have to make an insane toe tap just to get the completion. But I think the Chiefs still look like they're in high aggression territory, which should suit that overall offensive environment just fine. We'll see how close Isaiah Pacheco is to returning. Hunt did crash in the short touchdown and had a couple of good runs on wide open lanes that helped his yardage total look okay, but I still think he's pretty close to juiceless. The Chiefs in Week 12 play the Colts at home, while the Broncos will enjoy a well-deserved bye week.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, a bunch more football games. I watched them. I will tell you what I thought I saw. Coming up from Sunday's games, we'll have Buccaneers, Bills, Lions, Eagles, Commanders, Dolphins, and Bengals, Steelers. I'll give a quick preview of the truly dreadful-seeming Monday night game, Cowboys at Raiders. And then my guest will be Chris Raybon from the Action Network, and Chris picked 3 other games, and we both watched them. We'll talk about Texans, Titans, Chargers, Jaguars, and the very fun Seahawks, Rams. I think and hope you will have some fun, and I thank you again so much for listening today. If it's a day that ends in Y, you know the first thing I did when I got out of bed this morning. I put the powder in the water, I drank my AG1, and took care of my nutrition and my immune system and my tummy for the day. At holiday season, don't skimp on that immune system. We're in airports, we're around strangers or around little kids, filling in the gaps to keep us healthy is a great idea. I have replaced my multivitamin by drinking AG1 every morning, and I have now for more than 3 years. A simple micro habit, costs less than a cup of coffee a day. And I'll tell you, my biggest reason, it's the prebiotic and the probiotic and the other gut health sustaining ingredients that are built right in. First of all, they give my stomach the best chance of absorbing the nutrition when I drink it on an empty stomach. Also, I gotta say, anyone listening who struggles with regularity, whose tummy doesn't feel awesome a lot of the time, AG1, try it. It's so good for that. And if you're looking for a melatonin-free sleep aid, the past few weeks I've also been drinking AGZ before bed as well. All right, to find out more, drinkag1.com/Harris to get a free welcome kit with an AG1 flavor sampler and a bottle of vitamin D when you first subscribe. That's drinkag1.com/Harris.
Game Film Rewind.
All right, let's get back going again, talking about the high-scoring Bills win over the Buccaneers. If you didn't get to watch it and you see Baker Mayfield doing just 173 pass yards, your temptation might be to think, oh, weather game, wind game. Yeah, no, not really. Mostly the Bills won this game, but I doubt that many Buffalo fans are feeling incredibly great about the result because, once again, the Bills' defense simply got destroyed by an opposing run game so that Mayfield just didn't have to do any real throwing heroics until the game flipped dramatically in the fourth quarter. Obviously, thanks to Josh Allen, and also thanks to a gnarly Todd Bowles decision not to go for a 4th and 2 right around midfield. Allen had clearly gotten on a roll and was eviscerating his Tampa defense. What do you think was going to happen when he punted? But we can certainly talk about Tampa's offense. They came out with a plan, and they wrote it as long as they possibly could, and that plan was to run like crazy on the Bills, run power, at least at the start. Rachaad White, pulling plays, power plays. On the first drive, White does 4 for 20, and then they're driving. They have a 3rd and 8, and Mayfield hits Tez Johnson in the hands, but he does not catch it, so they punt. They immediately get the ball after a vapor lock Josh Allen interception. Sean Tucker is in there and starts looking like maybe the preferred red zone guy. He doesn't get in that time. Emeka Egbuka gets an end zone target, but it's too high. They kick a field goal. From this point in the game, the snap count between White and Tucker basically even among the Tampa running backs. However, the fantasy production certainly was not. White was a little unlucky not to have a touchdown in this game. He gets a red zone carry in the second quarter, and then he gets a screen that he gets tackled like inside the 1. But Tucker is in there. They take White out from the 1. They took Tucker in, but it's zone read, and Mayfield keeps it, and certainly it counts as one of these.
It was a jerk face touchdown. Make me MVP.
I mean, technically, I guess it wasn't a passing touchdown, so, I guess it wasn't that technical. He was looking at the MVP. Anyway, you get my point. Next series, Sterling Shepard had a 3rd and long conversion. Then they pitch it right to Tucker, and there's nobody there, and he's gone down the perimeter for a long score. It's 17-14 Tampa, and they have 111 rush yards in the first 25 minutes of the game. Third quarter, Tucker gets a sweep carry, awful contain. He's gone from the red zone again. Baker Mayfield is celebrating when he's still in the backfield because he can see how bad the run defense is. Touchdown, it's 26-21 Tampa. Early fourth quarter, after a bad pick by Mayfield, both of the running backs are rotating now for Tampa. So this is 33 combined touches, but Buffalo scores again. Once again, Tucker on a wheel route just fools the entire Buffalo defense, and he's by himself. He gets his 3rd touchdown. And let me take a step back and just say that I am not here to stand on principle for Rachaad White.
You can't legislate usage.
I do not know what the Buccaneers' plan will be for their running backs next week against Rams or the week after that against the Cardinals. I don't know when Bucky Irving's coming back and where the other 2 guys will fit into that equation at all at that point. I don't know if this wins Sean Tucker points in the battle to be a backup for the rest of this year. I think I have a pretty unblemished record of telling you I don't think Rachaad White's a particularly good player, and I do tend to think that the matter is kind of settled about whether Rachaad White will be in Tampa next year, because Rachaad White's not under contract for next year. Sean Tucker isn't a make-you-miss kind of player. He's a rolling ball of butcher knives. And he has good top-end speed, but it just takes him a little while to get there. But he's absolutely comfortable dishing out punishment. I'm just trying to tell you that I don't think Rachaad White played badly here. He just happened not to be the one toting the ball when the seas parted. But then, yeah, for sure, at that point, Josh Allen does a few magical things. Todd Bowles loses his nerve a little bit. Buffalo also got some really good kick returns to set them up with field position. But this was 32-31 Tampa in the fourth quarter, and then it very much wasn't. And when Mayfield needed to have it to save the game late, he just could not make it happen. Nothing really good comes out of that pass game yesterday, except maybe the fact that I can stop getting the question, hey, Harris, quick question. Why do you hate Tez Johnson so much? I don't hate him. I don't know him. It's just hard to score 4 touchdowns on 14 catches, and yesterday he had that drop that I mentioned. He had 2 jet sweep carries that did nothing. He had a lateral to the sidelines that gained a couple. He can score a touchdown as long as Chris Godwin is out. I mean, he could score a touchdown when Chris Godwin is in too, but I do not believe that Tez Johnson has magical touchdown scoring powers every single week. For the Bills, almost a very frustrating day for James Cook. 20 minutes into this game, Cook was 3 touches for 3 yards, and Ty Johnson had played a bunch. The Bills pretty much gave up trying to run for a good long while in this game, and I mean, Cook was stuck on 9 for 18 until there were 7 minutes left in this game, but he made great moves with a lead in the fourth quarter that helped move the sticks and kill the clock. And that combined with a wheel route touchdown on the very first play after the Mayfield interception I mentioned certainly saved Cook's day. And even if it didn't, we're not getting stupid. This is normally a very good running team, and we're not changing that opinion for right now. Allen himself did make that very silly play from his own end zone, trying to prevent a safety by getting sacked and instead launching a 2-handed pass directly to a Tampa defender, setting up the Buccaneers in close. Allen had a couple of other struggly moments late first half with some overthrows and then a deflected interception in the middle of the field, but in the second half. You want to talk about someone who went MVP mode. Allen had a lightning strike scramble drill throw to Tyrell Shavers. He should have had a short touchdown slant to Gabe Davis, but Davis dropped it. Right before halftime, a 3rd and 5, 40 seconds left, a harmless screen to the aforementioned Ty Johnson, and nobody's there, and he's gone for a 52-yard score. There was the wheel route touchdown to Cook, whereupon they did lose the lead again, but Allen kept making plays and rushed for his second touchdown, and then for good measure, after Cook gets it going a little bit, Allen gets his 3rd rushing touchdown. A whole lot of bodies playing receiver for Buffalo. At no time in watching this game did I ever feel like any of them had primacy over the others or that Allen's bond with them was particularly special. There were a lot of missed throws. Curtis Samuel had a deep shot that was overthrown. Khalil Shakir, very next play, had a deep shot overthrown. Mecole Hardman had a deep middle shot that wasn't that close. His first game as a Bill. One good kick return, also fumbled and also got hurt. It's the full Mecole Hardman experience. I don't think all that much of Gabe Davis. The little black backpack, Keon Coleman, was a healthy scratch for this game. The announcers said it was because he had missed a meeting. I don't know. I find it hard to believe he would have been much better. And this was with Dalton Kincaid sitting out with what is probably a multi-week hamstring injury. Dawson Knox had one play down the seam in the fourth quarter that got the Bills down to the 5, but that was his only catch of the game. So it's a lot of talking for, you start Allen and you start Cook, and then you do a lot of squinting when Buffalo takes on the Texans on Thursday night. Another really good game from Sunday. This one played at night. Lions-Eagles, fun to watch. For the second straight Eagle game, pretty frustrating for fantasy. The broadcast last night felt like they kept trying to blame the wind for the quarterbacks not playing very well. I don't know. I think the defenses had a lot to do with it. I think Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter knocking down passes had a lot to do with it. When the Lions got that late field goal, I didn't see after the kick, the ball didn't move that much in the wind. But anyway, there is a sneakingly strong suspicion that's growing more at this point that the Eagles are kind of winning games despite Nick Sirianni, or at least despite his game management skills. He seems to be amazing at swearing at officials and complaining about absolutely everything. But for the second straight week, Sirianni quite literally did the only thing stupid enough to keep the other team's hope alive in a game where the Eagles should have just won going away. In this game, it was going on fourth down from his own 30, another tush push when the previous one had been stopped, and the Lions stopped it again. Just punt the ball, buddy. I don't even understand your aversion to punting the ball, especially when the Lions offense had done so little and had such trouble moving the ball. And without an absolutely unbelievable phantom pass interference call on 3rd and long, which should definitely be drawing inquiry into that official's particular sportsbook account, the Lions do get one more chance, entirely because of Sirianni. And by the way, if you don't believe me about the call, here's Chris Collinsworth.
Come on. That is terrible. That is an absolutely terrible call that's going to decide this football game.
The offensive plan for Philly was definitely the squeaky wheel theory, and A.J. Brown was the squeaky wheel. But outside of some short stuff, Jalen Hurts just had a hard time connecting with anybody. I don't know, maybe it was the wind. He had a deep ball to Devontae Smith that had no chance. Not because of the wind, though. It was just thrown into double coverage. And then a potential big play to Dallas Goedert where Hurts throws it over the wrong shoulder. And again, I don't know how the wind caused that. And meanwhile, it felt like they're just giving up entire possessions to make A.J. Brown happy with targets. He was 6 for 43 at the half. And the only really good play among those plays was on the first series, a 12-yard gain where Brown had fallen down and caught it from his knees. In the second half, Brown will get 2 deep targets quite literally thrown out of bounds, and then the fateful interference call that there was absolutely no way in the world he was ever going to catch that ball. So I know it carries a little less weight when I say it for the second week in a row than what I said it last week, but I just don't know that we could stop ranking these guys as starters. The offense is starting to feel the way that the Philly offense felt in the second half of 2023. I get it. Like, the offensive line started with Lane Johnson, but he was a shadow of himself, and he got bull rushed early by Aiden Hutchinson and then limped to the locker room, never to return. Hurts seems, if not spooked, then at least, chastened into throwing to one guy. Hurts' best throw of the night was a rollout from his end zone to Jahan Dotson, and that was an absolute dime, and I didn't see any wind on that play. But without the tush-push rushing touchdown that he got, what kind of night is 135 pass yards and 31 rushing yards? Still, he does the tush-push, so you start Jalen Hurts. And then you keep starting Smith and Brown, and you hope, especially to take advantage of what looks like, anyway, a sweet Cowboy matchup next week. So I don't know that I'm going to change anything, but they're on alert, that's for sure. Saquon Barkley owners can feel hard done by. You get 90 scrimmage yards and a lot of run-out-the-clock carries at the end. Right at the end of the second quarter, it was actually Cartavius Bigsby who got them in close, but then Barkley has a good run, and they rule it a touchdown, but they overturn it because his elbow was down at the 1-inch line, and that was the night's only touchdown on the tush-push to Hurts. Barkley also easily had 3 10-plus yard runs overturned by holding. And in the fourth quarter, he ran a stutter go on the outside on a linebacker and was wide open for a long touchdown, and Hurts blew the throw. It's true that the network graphics are correct, and Barkley isn't getting as many explosive runs, but he was very close, like 4 times in this game. The Lions, basically one play worked the entire night, and the Lions really only got to it in the second half, which was, hey, let's throw screen passes to Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs was stuck at halftime on 12 scrimmage yards, and he had his legion of fantasy owners crying in the porta potty. Dan Campbell just keeps going forward on fourth down, back plays around midfield where Gibbs stuffed, loses possession yet again. How many times did it happen? I think they were successful on exactly 0 of 4 fourth down attempts, and that does not include the failed fake punt. Just keep managing your team by a spreadsheet, Dan. I'm sure it'll work out for you. But the good news was, as I began the Lions conversation with, the first 2 plays of the third quarter, just 2 direct screens right to Gibbs for his first big chunk gains of the night. But then on 4th and 4, there you go. They throw. Jared Goff throws it a little low. It goes directly through Jameson Williams' hands, and that drive ends dead as well. The only touchdown the Lions would score, 6-minute mark of the second quarter. Amon-Ra St. Brown runs the deep over, out of motion, and finally gets loose for 34 yards. And then Jameson Williams, next play, runs that same shallow cross that worked last week in D.C. He roasts Adoree Jackson in man coverage, and he houses it, but then he uses the goalpost as a prop, and he gets unsportsmanlike, which makes the kick harder, and maybe it was the wind. They missed the extra point. Gibbs would wind up doing, in the second half, 4 catches, 103 yards receiving, all on screens. But time after time, a drive would get to 4th down, and Campbell would apparently feel pot committed and go for it and fail. And then he gets the absolute gift from Sirianni, and then they take a sack, and they have 2 incompletions and kick the field goal, and they never get the ball back again. And lest you think I'm somehow pulling for the Lions in this game, I'm absolutely not. And you can convincingly argue that even with a non-bad call in the interference and the Eagles punt, with one last chance in a world where, that call doesn't happen, there's no way the Lions were scoring a touchdown. I could see that argument for sure. It's just, they had barely moved the ball all night, but it was just kind of galling. They didn't get a chance to try. Obviously, we're 1 week removed from the Lions racking up 1,000,000 yards and points against a more mortal defense in the Commanders. Next week against the Giants, I don't think we're going to change too much about how we use the Detroit players for that one. We are sponsored by Rocket Money, the personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It's a very cool display that I have used. Rocket Money shows all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you might have forgotten about. And if you see a subscription you no longer want, a few taps in the app, Rocket Money will help you cancel it. I've mentioned my old ESPN.com account. I really didn't want that anymore. I also had an old PlayStation that I don't even own anymore. We subscribe to so much more stuff. Maybe your family subscribes to stuff that they don't use anymore and you never knew about. Rocket Money has saved users over $2.5 billion, including over $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/Harris today. That's rocketmoney.com/Harris.
In my mind, I'm going to Spain with Stafford.
The NFL finally went to Spain, albeit not with Stafford. So we've been waiting with that sound drop for the entire history of this show. And there you go. Commanders-Dolphins play in Spain. Not what you would call the most dynamic game. The first half was almost taken up entirely by 2 drives apiece with runs and short passes, and we are relatively terrified of our quarterbacks. Our second straight European overtime game that mostly nobody wants extra football for, but we got it. Had a moment in the fourth quarter where it looked like Devon Achane might be hurt. You had Dolphins linemen kneeling near him. And he did leave the field, but he was back for a late drive after that, plus the salting of the game in overtime to keep getting Miami in better and better position for the game-winning field goal. Achane still had some problems getting stuffed up the gut. The first drive, they tried him on a 3rd and 2, and he was stuffed, and they were going to go on 4th down, but then they committed delay of game. The Miami offensive line kind of wrecked Washington's defensive line up and down the field, creating lanes for whoever was running, but less so in the red zone. 2 field goals in the first half. First drive of the second half, the first play was play-action slant to Jalen Waddle for his only good gain of the day. Waddle would have 2 horrible drops in the fourth quarter and only do 3 for 52. That time in the red zone, they stopped messing with Achane. They gave it to Ollie Gordon, 3 carries to him. They're in close. Achane comes in. We're going to get you a touchdown, little buddy. And he gets stuffed. 3rd and goal. Gordon comes back in again, and he gets stuffed. Then on 4th down, they throw in close for Waddle, and Bobby Wagner knocks it away. Miami's first goal-to-go situation in which they didn't score a touchdown all season, but don't you worry, there would be another one in this game. To start the fourth quarter, Achane made, I thought, his best play of the game. I thought a lot of his big runs were wide open with the Commander defense kind of looking helpless, but you want special. Watch this backwards pass on the sideline to Achane where most other NFL players would lose 4 yards, and he just dances and accelerates and somehow gains 9. That is a special play. But bad luck for Achane, catching an arrow route and getting tackled at the 1. They pull him, and Gordon is the one who scores the touchdown that ties the game at 13. And then, end of the game, under 2 minutes to play, the score is still the same. Achane gets them down to the 1 again, and they want him to pay it off again on third down, but he stopped. Then on fourth down, they have a choice to kick a field goal and take the lead, and Mike McDaniel throws caution to the wind. He runs Ollie Gordon, and he gets stuffed, and it gives the Commanders a chance to go win the game. And Deebo Samuel from his own 3 makes his second good play of the game. Pretty invisible otherwise, but his early touchdown was good, a good run after the catch. And this play that I'm mentioning was a minute left in regulation, a baller catch over the middle for 28. The Commanders have a new Jacoby Jones, not the old Jacoby Jones, who I learned yesterday unfortunately passed away last year. This Jacoby Jones made a play. They were in long field goal range, but they missed it, and overtime ensued. And on the Commanders' side, was Marcus Mariota good? I would say no. But until overtime, he'd understood the assignment. He had led long, patient drives, several times aided by Dolphins penalties. Both of the first 2 drives stalled and resulted in field goals. There was a 3rd and long at Washington's own 1 where Jeremy McNichols gets a hopeless check down screen and then somehow gets the first down on his own. But then Mariota dropped back to pass in his own end zone and was getting sacked and somehow spun out of the tackle box and winged it out of bounds beyond the line of scrimmage to avoid the safety. Mariota was actually hurt on that play. Josh Johnson came in for 1 play, but then Mariota came back in. And then 3rd and 9, next drive, Mariota made his big fantasy play. The Dolphins came with a blitz one direction. He goes in the other. He runs for 45 yards. And then they gave Coconut DeBoney a chance right up the gut to score in the Wildcat. Can he do it?
Can't do it.
No. Deebo Samuel on the run at the goal line does not score, and Chris Rodriguez gets stuffed twice. On 4th down, they try Zach Ertz, and Ertz falls down, and they're stopped. But Mariota had been fine. I mean, it was okay for fantasy, and it was okay, but then in overtime, you did get the howler, a horrible throw by Mariota, picked off in field goal range for Miami, and that was all she wrote. The thing to mention about the backfield is that, once again, Chris Rodriguez was the starter. He also looked to me like that's the right call. Like he's the best running back they have. He's the most direct and the most physical. I believe Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's first carry came from his own 5-yard line with 5 minutes left in the first half. You got a bit more JCM work in the second half, but Rodriguez was better, playing the most snaps, and at this moment would certainly be the only Commanders running back you would consider using in an emergency. Leaving Spain, of course, both of these teams are on bye in Week 12. And let's talk Bengals-Steelers. Not exactly how we drew it up, with a couple offenses that didn't do all that much, really, except for the first drive apiece. The way the game started, I watched this not live after the fact, I was like, I didn't know the score, so I was like, okay, we're heading for the same kind of game that we had on that Thursday night. It's going to be a shootout. The Steelers go right down, alternating DK Metcalf catches with Jaylen Warren runs, and on one of those runs, Warren got loose for 35 yards, and it looked certainly like the Bengals defense was right back to being a joke, but they played a couple of rookie linebackers who obviously I don't know very much about and were actually pretty solid thereafter. But on that first drive, it ended with a red zone touchdown catch by Kenneth Gainwell. After that, Steelers didn't do all that much. And obviously some injuries struck that we'll talk about. On the second drive, it's 3rd and 8. And I'm sitting there all by myself at the desk watching. And I say to myself, Aaron Rodgers is throwing it 3 yards. And sure enough, Aaron Rodgers threw it 3 yards, and they punted. In the 2-minute drill at the end of the half, Rodgers got roughed twice. They would kick a field goal. They would go up 10-6 at the half. But apparently on one of those hits, Rodgers sustained an injury to his non-throwing wrist, and Mason Rudolph played the entire second half. It wasn't very good. Made less good by Jaylen Warren on the first drive of the third quarter, getting wishboned after a screen reception. They said ankle injury, and he did not return. He also wasn't in the locker room, and my understanding of what Mike Tomlin said after the game yesterday was, he didn't make it sound like it was super serious. Could he miss Week 12? I would assume yes, it's possible. I don't know. For the moment, as I saw it happen, it looked bad. It looked like it might be season ending, and who knows? We'll find out. Maybe it will be. In the rest of the second half, with no Warren, the rookie Caleb Johnson did play more. He played 8 snaps, had a couple of okay runs in the third quarter, but it was much more Gainwell. So my floating the trial balloon over the past week or two that maybe we were done with Gainwell because Caleb Johnson was playing more, yeah, that was wrong. And Gainwell would score on a different red zone screen in the fourth quarter. DK Metcalf did 5 for 49. It very much should have been more. There was a check down that Rudolph threw in the fourth quarter where they showed a blown Bengals coverage by the safeties, and Metcalf was by them, and it should have been a long touchdown to the post, but Mason Rudolph did not throw it. The Bengals, their first drive was good too. Chase Brown immediately a couple of good runs. They moved it pretty easily, and T. Higgins had his only catch in the meaningful portion of the game, but it was a scramble drill throw by Joe Flacco, and it's a touchdown. On the second drive, Flacco threw a perfect deep ball to Jamar Chase that he would have caught, but it was knocked away by a good defensive play at the last moment. After that point, all the Bengals really did was punt until the third quarter. The theory being that they and Flacco were somehow flummoxed by the Steelers coming out and playing mostly zone defense, whereas they normally are known as a man coverage team. I don't know. Darius Slay, you knew he wasn't going to play, and then Jalen Ramsey gets ejected. I would have thought they might have been less surprised by more zone and less man. Flacco, you know what it's like when you play against zone. You have to be okay with the checkdowns. Unfortunately, Joe Flacco doesn't seem to like the idea of checking down. First play of the third quarter, Chase Brown gets a wide open lane up the gut, goes through the hole untouched. He gets 35 yards on that one, but they immediately stall and kick another field goal. It was 10-9, and then it was 13-9, and Flacco deep in Steeler territory. That's the game-changing play. Apparently confused by zone. I don't know. It's hard to know, but Kyle Duggar, it's a pick six. I personally can speak from experience and tell you it has to be a pretty bad throw for Kyle Duggar to catch it. And so that was one defensive touchdown for the Steelers. And then after the competitive portion of the game was over, Noah Fant had a fumble 6. I guess we learn here that Joe Flacco isn't magical. He's not just going to automatically do 400 yards every single week. And even if he finds himself in a deep hole, he isn't always going to dig himself out of it. And in fact, in this case, it wasn't really the Bengals defense that dug the hole. It was more the turnovers in the second half. Plus, you'd have to imagine that in Week 12 against the Patriots, Flacco's going to see a lot of zone because that seems to be what tripped him up. Meanwhile, the Steelers in Week 12 will be at the Bears, and we will certainly be talking about potential Jaylen Warren replacements during the waiver segment on Tuesday's episode.
Monday Night Preview.
Seems like 700 years ago the Cowboys actually played a game. It's only 2 weeks in that awful effort against the Cardinals, one day before the trade deadline. That's right. We actually have not seen a game in which Quinnen Williams, whom Dallas acquired on deadline day, actually has played a game with the Cowboys. We will see it tonight. And also linebacker Logan Wilson, formerly of those Bengals, will play as well. And I guess we'll get an idea of whether those additions will change what has clearly been one of the worst defenses in the NFL and one of the ones you've wanted your players playing against. We're getting Cowboys at Raiders. I imagine Quinnen Williams will help. He's very good. Sight unseen, I would not have used that as a reason not to use your Raiders that you would otherwise be excited about this matchup for. The Cowboys themselves offensively are easy. A whole lot of fantasy teams out there. You waited for Prescott, Javonte Williams, Lamb, Pickens, Ferguson. Vegas played a stout defensive game the last time we saw them play a week ago Thursday against the Broncos, but they are certainly not world beaters on defense. And in that game, we watched Geno Smith hobble around and leave the game for a couple of plays with a quad contusion, but he'll reportedly play in this one. Maybe he'll even remember that Brock Bowers is good. Ashton Jeanty is in lineups. That's probably mostly the only way you'd feel good about using Raiders tonight, Bowers and Jeanty. Though if you took an emergency shot on a receiver like Trey Tucker or even gulp Tyler Lockett, who spent the week on the injury list but is supposedly okay to play in this game tonight, certainly against the Cowboys, I would understand that shot. This is not the best use of Buck and Aikman, that's for sure, but I will watch it tonight and talk about it on Tuesday's show. We are sponsored by Pick 6 from DraftKings, a fun way to play. For small amounts, please, mostly for fun, but it is fun. With Pick 6, you pick 2 or more players, and you pick more or less of a stat. For instance, maybe you'll be watching Cowboys-Raiders that I just talked about. If you were to take Ashton Jeanty over 0.5 touchdowns scored and Javonte Williams under 11.5 receiving yards, a number he has not reached in 5 straight games, play that for $5, you'll win $12, and it's something to root for. Plus, if you download the Pick 6 app and sign up using the code Harris, make one $5 pick set, and they'll put $50 in Pick 6 credits into your account. Give it a try tonight. It's pretty fun. Get that Pick 6 app and make sure to sign up using that code Harris.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Today's guest.
Sometimes it feels like Chris is a bother.
You don't answer questions when I ask them.
Sometimes it feels like Chris is my friend.
This is great. I love talking about this stuff with you.
Is the email he sent me the email of fashion?
Oh, you.
Can't say that one.
I'll just ignore it. I doubt he will.
And today's guest, it is Chris Raybon from the Action Network. Find him on Twitter. Just look him up. Chris Raybon. You can see him all over the Action Network YouTube channel. You know I watch the YouTube channel. I see Raybon every week. I know what he thinks about these teams. He's one of my favorites. It's a pleasure to get him on. Hi, Chris. How are you?
What's going on? What the hell did we watch yesterday? These felt like preseason. You usually complain about these games, and you actually said, I think you actually enjoyed them, but I don't know. They felt very preseason-ish with some of the quarterback play in some of them, so we'll get into it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what made you pick Texans-Titans when you could have picked anything, but the good part is I think it'll go pretty fast. Calvin Ridley, targeted on the game's first play, immediately breaks his leg, which seems like that's par for the course with Calvin Ridley. The Titans, really, if you have a good fantasy team at this point, we can talk about, wow, Tajay Spears made a couple of nice plays in the screen game, and they don't really trust him running the ball, and then you see him run, you're like, I kind of understand why. He's tiny. A healthy fantasy team probably doesn't need a lot of Titans.
You don't, but I will say this, because it's this time of year, if you are a good team, just remember, in Fantasy Championship Week, the Titans host the Saints. So that could actually be a matchup that you might need a guy like a Tajay Spears or whoever. Remember, Spears went off for like the last 2-3 games down the stretch last year when they were out of contention. So you never know what's going to happen. So you do want to kind of pay attention, at least, keep an eye on them. I think I'm looking for a receiver to emerge now. I mean, all the receivers are dead. So it's like maybe DK. I mean, he's my favorite one. When he comes back, he usually looks like the best one. I haven't seen much from Io Manor to make me confident. I'm sick of Van Jefferson. Okonkwo is like, we've been waiting for him for 5 years. I mean, Gunnar Helm is probably better, but he's not going to do anything. So I think pay attention to the running backs, and I'm looking for DK if he comes back from that concussion down the stretch, because you never know if you might need one of these guys in a pinch in week 17.
I would still love to see Okonkwo get to a better team in a better situation and just see if it ever could turn. That was a great catch. I mean, it was a good throw by Ward, but that That's a tight end making like an over-the-shoulder catch to the left sideline. It's a pretty good play, but you're right. I mean, of course, we're not going to chase him.
He does that once a year. Like he does that. He makes you think about him and remember like did he have like a crazy yards per route run as a rookie or something? Like something got us all onto him, and then we've just been waiting ever since.
Yeah, fair. And then, unfortunately, you're just not going to learn that much in this game about the Texans either, because they're obviously willing to be exactly as conservative as the opponent will let them be. And against the Jags last week, that wound up, they dug themselves a big hole, and then they had to throw, and they proved capable of, against a not very good defense, to get out of it. And they just didn't push the envelope here much at all. Fortunately, the only guy with no CJ Stroud around, the only guy you're really hoping for, all leagues are going to have a team that's starting Nico Collins. He's lucky to get the touchdown because Jaden Higgins made a really nice play, great catch. I thought he might have been in. They ruled him down at the 1, and then Collins gets the touchdown. But also, he had a sick toe tap that set up the winning field goal.
Yeah, Collins looks great. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the league. If he gets Stroud back, he could go on a tear. And you mentioned the Texans are kind of being a little bit conservative in this one, obviously against the Titans, but I always like to think about the fantasy playoffs this time of year and how things are going to kind of shake out. And from here on, the Texans could be shooting it out. I mean, their next opponents: Bills, Colts, Chiefs, Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers. That's the remaining fantasy schedule for the Texans. So I'm watching Higgins. That receiver room is a little crowded right now, but I think Higgins would be the one to emerge. I don't think he'll become consistent, but I think Woody Marks probably will be startable at points down the stretch. It looks like they're trying to phase Chubb out. It's getting late in the year. It's around the time when those washed veterans disappear. So, yeah, I thought Marks looked pretty good. I mean, I know it's the Titans, and the Titans' run D did look a little better too. I don't think he didn't put up a big, box score or anything, but I do think he looks good. I do think he has some juice in the passing game if they need it. And he's gonna be their primary runner. He can still run between the tackles too a little bit. So yeah, I like Woody Marks.
I will move on to Chargers Jags, and I don't want to just go off and say I told you so to the audience, because I've been crying wolf for a very long time. I mean, it seems like a long time, a few weeks since Joe Alt has been out. I haven't been saying sit them. It's not like I was saying I'm positive a disaster is coming for the Chargers. In fact, I think, on the Wednesday show last week, we said, I'm very worried about it, but until you see it blow up in your face, I think you have to keep using Herbert and the receivers. But I mean, the very first play of this game is an unblocked rusher on Herbert. He gets called for intentional grounding. He gets benched with 11 minutes left in the game, and the rest of the starters are out there with Trey Lance. A pressure rate of 50% is not sustainable. I don't know what to do with this passing game coming out of their bye. They have a bye coming up, and then after that, I don't know what you do.
I mean, the Chargers, they usually going to have one of those in Jacksonville. It's a lot of teams have been known to do that because it is a kind of shock to your system, right? You know how it is out here in LA. It's comfy. You go across the country. It's all hot and humid and outdoorsy. Because Justin Herbert, both of these quarterbacks, I've never seen a professional game between two quarterbacks drafted that highly. It just looked like they look like quarterbacks, first of all, but they also look like they never played football in their lives. They were just casually throwing interceptions. It'd be like if you just got out on the park after not playing ball for 5 years. And you just started throwing and all your throws are short and low and to the left. It's the most casual, just terrible, most inaccurate throws. And I think that's just, I think for the Chargers their blocking is going to be an issue. I mean, their offensive line has been decimated, but I'm not going to judge them off of that Jaguars week because this happens to a lot of teams. I've seen it too many times. And the Chargers have been, every time I see them, they're passing more than I think they would. So I think that's still a positive. They probably said, hey, we got to just regroup. We're not trying to get Herbert, screwed up because they've done that before too. Just got him. He will just take a lick after lick and just keep on going, not come out of the game. So I think they just wanted to pull him, regroup, and I think they'll come out swinging because they have no running back, so they got to pass. Every running back they have is hurt, so I think they're still going to pass. To Keenan Allen, maybe not as much now that he got the record. They were already playing him fewer snaps. I think they'll probably try to get Harris more involved. Gadsden's a monster. Ladd looks good. Quentin Johnson probably will appear and disappear, but I'm not that worried about it. I just think I've seen teams do this in Jacksonville, throughout my football watching life.
I am very worried. I will say that I am very worried. I recognize that quarterbacks can get a lot of pressure and still produce good fantasy days, but it also can lead to, we're going to talk about Sam Darnold here in a little bit. It can lead to disasters too. And I am quite concerned. And who knows, maybe, he's a mystery man, but maybe this is Omari and Hampton's bye week to get right. And maybe they do come back more run centric just to try to balance things out, because teams are just absolutely teeing off.
And they can't move anybody. They're better off just letting Herbert drop back and toss it to somebody. Maybe. They can't. Maybe. They're not going to be able to. But we're not going to talk about Trevor Lawrence. How does he always manage to look this bad, even in a 35-6 win? I you know how bullish I was on the Jags coming this season, and they're it's all Liam Cohen. Tootin looked really good. I hope he's healthy, but Trevor Lawrence, I can't trust anybody on this in this Jags passing game. And now they're doing that thing where they play everybody. It's okay, Tim Patrick, you get a start. Austin Trammell, you get a start. Everyone's playing. It's gonna be so frustrating. So I'm just hoping. I think they might want to turn into a pretty run centric heavy team, even run heavier, because I think ETN still looks good, or he looks better than he's looked, and Tootin looked really good. If he's not hurt, I think he could have a kind of a Bucky Irvin type second half.
Yeah, the Tootin thing is unfortunate. He when it happened, I was watching that game live, and when it happened, he's rolling around I thought, oh my God, are we going to see his foot pointing in the wrong direction or something? It looked like he was really hurt, but then he was able to get up and he was putting some weight on it on the sideline. So hope that Tootin is okay. I agree with you. ETN's also been very good. I wanted to mention Jacoby Myers, though, as much as you're skeptical of Trevor Lawrence, and it's fine to be skeptical of Lawrence down the field. And I think Matt Waldman on the show last week kind of put the fear of God into people, because he was like, you're not getting Myers in the slot, so he's useless because Lawrence can't go down the field. And I just think we want to back off of generalized statements like that, because someone who quote unquote doesn't play in the slot, you're never sending Jacoby Myers deep anyway. The stuff that he did in this game, sure, was he mostly out wide? It was still stops and crosses and hooks and all the short stuff, which is the only thing Lawrence can kind of make happen right now. I was heartened at least by the idea that, okay, no, he might not be in the slot. It's Parker Washington, whatever. And when Brian Thomas comes back, who knows? They're all going to move around all over the place, but we're still getting Myers in the stuff that Lawrence can do.
Yes, in the sense, if you're in a PPR league and it's, he's it's a deep PPR league, yes. But Trevor Lawrence, you know what he does not do? Throw touchdowns. You know what Jacoby Myers does not do? Catch touchdowns. It's just not. I don't think it's a great match. I think and it's just one of those things where it's okay, Thomas is out. He's probably going to be back, and I don't know what this rotation is going to be going forward, because at times they work in Brown more. At times now they're working in Patrick. Washington has emerged. Strange is going to be back. So there's going to be a lot of competition for targets. Lawrence is not a touchdown thrower. I'm sure people can't trade anymore, but if you are one of those leagues that can just trade all year, I would sell high on this guy. I don't really see how he's making a difference, I guess, is what I'm saying. He'll give you some 5 for 64s, but is he getting to 8 for 110 in this offense with a touchdown? I don't think so.
Yeah, unfortunately, the guys who I can consistently count on 8 for 110, I can count on one hand. That's the problem.
No, you know what I mean. I mean the ceiling though. His high this year is 8 for 97. He hasn't scored a touchdown all year. He's got 2 in his last 20 games. He had that one little streak with the Raiders and Carr where he was scoring a few touchdowns, but never really been a touchdown guy. Kind of like Evan Ingram. It's what is he going to give me even at his peak? I don't know.
All right, so then we got Seahawks-Rams. This was a really great game to watch, actually. It comes down to a long field goal attempt for the Seahawks that they miss, but I think 2 very good teams. They look obviously like 2 playoff teams. We can talk about this game, and we will. I'm trying to find the stuff that has the potential to change fantasy opinions and change who you're going to start and stuff like that. Sam Darnold got pressured and got rattled, and certainly counts among the quarterbacks that you mentioned in these 3 games that got, that played bad. In Darnold's case, he threw 4 interceptions. Does knowing that this is in the range of outcomes for Darnold, which we all knew, and maybe it's just always the Rams because he did this in the playoffs against the Rams with the Vikings last year. Does this change the hierarchy, the way you'd be starting Seattle players?
Not at all, honestly, because first of all, this game was very interesting because the Seattle outplayed the Rams and should have won the game. And I don't know how that happened with turning the ball over 4 times and throwing no touchdown from a quarterback that was essentially averaging like 10 yards an attempt prior. So, I mean, Seattle's still dangerous. And for fantasy, I think, first of all, JSN is wide receiver 1 every week. So that doesn't change my opinion. And then I'm actually intrigued with, they got Shaheed here, and like they're not going to face the Rams every week. I think the Rams are probably the toughest defense left on their schedule. So it's, I think he could get going. Kupp doesn't look completely washed, but I don't think, they're going to I don't think he's going to be startable, but I'm like Shaheed in like a pinch might end up being a guy because they traded for him. So I'm interested to see how they work him in going forward. And then I think Barner might also be a guy if they're playing like a zone defense, he's going to have those games like that. So it doesn't really affect me. Darner's just been so good and so efficient, and this was just a really tough matchup. So no, I'm not gonna fall into that trap. I think he's still liable to get knocked out of the playoffs that way, but this is just a very good offense. It's frustrating more at the running back position because I think Walker kind of is emerging, but they're also working in Holani more, and they like him too. So it's a little harder to trust the running backs, and then Charbonnet gets the goal line looks, but I'm gonna keep rocking with JSN is the wide receiver 1 every week, and I'm paying a little more attention to Barner, Shaheed in Diva leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my point was agreed that it probably doesn't change that much. Rashid Shaheed had that really nice corner route that gained 21, and you're like, come on, get him going. And they lined up him at halfback one time and gave him a carry. It didn't go anywhere. It's tough. I mean, the good part we mentioned was, landing with Clint Kubiak. He should know the system, but he doesn't know the personnel. And we even heard the announcers in that game say, Sam Darnold told us that he's used to fast players, but not Rashid Shaheed level of fast. And so there's that deep ball down the right sideline where it's like if they had training camp together, I bet that's a touchdown. He roasted the dude, but he couldn't hit him. But you're right. There's upside.
Remember that? Didn't Shaheed go on a tear for those first 5 or 6 games last year with Carr under Kubiak? So I'm not going to count him out because we've seen him do it in this. In this offense, we've seen him do it, and Darnold's dealing. So. Yeah.
Don't count him out, but yeah, it's a frustrating result. Kyron Williams owners would be, if they didn't watch this game, would be sick to know that down at the goal line, the second drive, Blake Corum gets 3 straight carries to try and close it out, and then Kyron scores his touchdown on 4th down. Also, the Rams had 1 total yard in the second quarter. Devontae Adams. I'll wrap it up with a Devontae Adams question because you're using these guys. We're not gonna get clever and sit Devontae Adams. It felt like Devontae Adams almost blew this game. He had 1 catch for 1 yard, and it was they were at the 1 yard line. He got 1 target, incomplete, and then goes to the inside and he scores his touchdown. So cool, he paid off. There's just a thing that has cropped up a few times this year where Adams and Matt Stafford just aren't expecting the same thing. Adams is obviously an all-timer, but he had the drop, and then he had the 3rd down. I guess it's a miscommunication where if he catches it, the game's over, and instead they give Seattle a chance because they weren't on the same page. I guess this is a fantasy podcast, and we're not going to tell people to sit Devontae Adams, but you got kind of a bad Matt Stafford game. This is a hard Seattle defense to play against, but your thoughts on Adams?
I've thought this for a while on Adams. He is not as serious about football as he used to be. However, he's in the perfect situation to coast. So, yeah, we can't sit him, but we can't expect 100-yard games from him either. Like, he's going to give you a lot of those nail-biting, 3 catches, maybe 1 or 2 touchdown games, and you just kind of have to live with it. Like, I believe he actually is underscoring his expected touchdowns this year. Like, I think his expected is 15, and he's got 10 or something like that. It leads the league. So it's ridiculous. But listen, he went to Vegas a couple of years ago, and that kind of raised my eyebrows because he was so serious with Rodgers. He goes to the Raiders to play with Carr. He had to know that wasn't going to be a winning situation. And then he goes back to Rodgers in the horrible Jets mid-season from the Raiders. And he starts off kind of slow, and then they're just like forcing the ball to him, and he has some good games on the stretch. And then he goes to the Rams, and he just goes to LA to just essentially win a Super Bowl. And he's like, I mean, look at him out there. He's just like jogging around, doubling over. And that touchdown is like that. Like, what you could have thrown him that touchdown, and I could have caught it. Like, he just like tippy-toed into the end zone, looked, oh yeah, hello football. Like, he's not serious, bro. And I don't blame him. I mean, he put himself on the line for it was Carr, right? That was right when Carr started, just throwing all the hospital balls. So he's probably just enjoying this. But yeah, I do worry sometimes, just because the Rams have this tendency to, like, they love these veterans. Like, nobody on their team is athletic, like, especially with Atwell on IR. Like, these are just like a bunch of like Higbee and Parkinson, and I mean, like, all these guys are just kind of like just good football players. But remember Allen Robinson, Cup last year? Like, I'm just hoping that, like, Adams makes it to the finish line, but I think he's kind of coasting with that in mind. So I think it's all going to work out. Like, we're not sitting him, but yeah, I've noticed there's a little drop in intensity, but it might just be for self-preservation. But I mean, it's odd. His catch rate this year, what would you guess his catch rate is, just without looking?
I would guess like under 50.
It's 50 exactly, but that's horrible. Okay. Like, that's horrible. That's bad. Yeah. So I mean, he has a lower floor than people think, and you can just see that watching him. Like, he might have a couple more of those like 1 and 2 catch games. Kind of reminds.
Would you trade him? Would you dump him? Would you try to trade him if trade deadline isn't over?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind it. I personally wouldn't, because I always look at the schedules down the stretch. The Rams face the Bucs, Panthers, Cardinals, Lions, Seahawks, Falcons. That is the only outdoor game is Carolina. So yeah, let's I would guess the Cardinals, but that's like a retract. So yeah, Stafford and Adams indoors, they can make it work. So I'm not trading them. I mean, touchdowns are still the name of the game, and there's no one scoring touchdowns like him. So it's hard to trade him for like who are you trading him for that you can count on to give you better at this point?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a running back, but yeah, it's a good point. It's worth considering anyway. I appreciate you doing this. These were fun games to talk about. You can find Mr. Raybon all over the Action Network app. You can look at the Action Network YouTube channel. He's doing podcasts all week, and you can find him, of course, all across social media as well. Great to get your thoughts on these games, my friend. Thank you for doing it.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me thank the 3 sponsors that made this fun show possible. We had AG1, and you can also check out AGZ. I've been drinking both of them. We had Rocket Money, and we had Pick 6 from DraftKings. If you were interested in anything I had to say about today's sponsors, and you can see your way through to using the codes and URLs, that's how this show keeps going, and we've been going. This is our 11th season. That's all because of your support of the sponsors. I am very appreciative to all of you. You can find all the current sponsors listed at harrisfootball.com. That will do it for this Monday episode. A lot of games watched, but some more games to go. If I didn't talk about the game you're interested in, it means I have not watched it yet, and I don't know much about it, but I'm about to go watch them all the rest, and talk about them on Tuesday's episode. And then it's time to start thinking about Week 12. And to help me begin that process, we'll do some waiver wire with our great friend, Jake Seeley from The Athletic. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you tomorrow.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.